Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Did the video the other day about class actions, class action against Facebook, and pointed out that if you join the class action, you might get some money. It's unclear how much money you'll get because it's based upon how many people claim the money. And if more people claim it, you'll get less. And if fewer people claim it, you'll get more. And of course, that means that somewhere down the road, you'll get a check for $3.19. Although I've had several people send me notes and say, Steve, I got a pretty decent sized check out of this particular class action. It's pretty cool. In fact, I've heard of people getting checks in the hundreds of dollars and in some rare examples, thousands of dollars. But that's because there's a lot of money involved in a smaller class. However, Jeffrey sent me a note and said, Steve, check out the story from CNBC. Some Equifax settlement checks bounced due to clerical error at a failed bank. So this is a relatively recent story, but the Equifax class action situation goes way back. Sarah O'Brien wrote this. Some consumers who tried to deposit their Equifax settlement checks in recent days got a surprise when those checks bounced. The checks, a result of a legal settlement over the credit reporting firm's 2017 data breach, which, yes, that's 6 years ago, were written against an account at Signature Bank. Now, that bank was taken over by regulators recently after account holders began withdrawing their money en masse. They were spooked by the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank not so long ago. So the checks that were returned unpaid are not related to the bank's failure, said the CEO of the legal administration that's overseeing this distribution of the funds. They said what happened here, due to a Signature Bank clerical error, certain checks that should have cleared were rejected by other banks. So somehow other banks saw that it was a Signature Bank check and said, oh, we heard these people went under, we're going to bounce that check. So that's what they say happened. Now, they say that fewer than 5,000 consumers are affected. What's great about that number is that those people in that group could file their own class action because it's a large enough class. In fact, it's way more than you need for a class. But, of course, they don't need to. Roughly 18 million consumers were part of the class action lawsuit that led to that settlement. So this all has to do with a 2017 Equifax data breach. Equifax, one of the companies that tracks your personal information, and then, of course, gets misused for all kinds of purposes. And somewhere along the line, somebody hacked in and got all that information about all those people. And somewhere along the line, I seem to recall that they were trying to figure out what happened, and they found out the person who's in charge of security at Equifax had no experience and didn't know what they were doing. They just kind of got stuck in that job, and the guy closed the door and pretend I'm working, So it compromised the personal information of more than 147 million consumers, including names, birth dates, and social security numbers. And of course, this stuff is all available now on the dark web. That's the problem. Somebody gets all this information, puts it on the dark web, and sells it, and it's being used for all kinds of nefarious purposes. The company became the target of multiple lawsuits and reached a settlement in 2019 with the Federal Trade Commission, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and all U.S. states and territories. So if you are, in fact, in Guam, if you're in Guam, I think you're good to go. U.S. Virgin Islands? Yeah, I think you're good. As a result, consumers who were affected by the breach had the option of signing up for either free credit monitoring for a little while or money. So you had the choice. Do you want some money or free credit monitoring? And the money was up to $125, up to. Because again, if more people claim the money, so a lot of people said, I'll take the free credit monitoring from the people who've already proved they don't know how to do it right. So they were also going to get some of that monitoring done by other companies, though. So that might help. After implementation was delayed due to legal challenges, the settlement received final court approval in early 2022. Somebody commented under my video the other day about Facebook, and I said that after a settlement's been reached and entered with the court then says if people want to object to this, they can, and that might take it up on appeal. And people said, how can you object to something you've agreed to settle? Well, in a class action, there's somebody who's speaking for the class. They say, we think this is a good settlement. Members of the class didn't agree to that necessarily. They might want to come forward and go, I don't like that settlement. That's how. Now, generally speaking, if you and I have a lawsuit against each other and we settle it, I can't then go to court and go, well, I settled this case and I object to my own settlement of it. That's not how that works. But in a class action, it can happen. So the cash payments, which may be far less than $125, could be as little as $5, began going out in mid-December, either as a check, payment to a PayPal account, or a prepaid card via email from the settlement administrator, depending on how you chose to get your money. So you could actually say, how do I want my money? Here's how. And by the way, the same is true with Facebook. If you go to the Facebook settlement thing right now and fill in the form, it'll say, how do you want your money sent to you? You can have them mail you a check if you want to, but you can also have them, PayPal it to you or Zelle it to you and that kind of thing. So if you are among those whose check bounced, you will be contacted by the administrator. Apparently, they're tracking whose checks bounced. We'll be notifying those individuals and reissuing their check, she said. Additionally, if your bank charged you a fee for this, you should reach out to the administrator, which you can do by email. And when you provide them with proof of the charge, the money will also be reimbursed. So ironically, you may have tried to cash a $5 check or deposit a $5 check. The check may have bounced. It may have cost you $25 for a bounced check fee. And now they got to send you a check for $30, which hopefully will clear. Because then you'd just be in a vicious cycle. But the scary part is it says fewer than 5,000 consumers were affected, which sounds like they're probably saying in the 4,000s. I'm assuming if it was below 4, they'd say below 4. So 4,000 some odd checks bounced from one bank. And adding up all those fees and reissuing all those checks is going to be a real pain. So it's a sad, sad story, but it's something I've never heard of this happening before with respect to a settlement of a class action. And I've mentioned before, I've gotten some checks and class actions that I was a member of the class in. I've also handled class actions. I've actually filed a class action on more than one occasion. And I've settled some class actions also. And I can tell you that the bouncing of these checks is quite unusual because, no question, they've got the money. Equifax put the money up and then the administrators are simply distributing it. So I believe them when they say that there was simply an error at that bank, but it does make you wonder because it sounds like they're using more than one bank, right? Otherwise they'd have many more checks bouncing unless it's just a period of time or something. But it's crazy because the class actions that I've gotten settlements in, I've gotten some that were like $1.18. One of the ones I think was really, really low like that was for compact discs. There was a class action filed a few years ago on behalf of anybody who had bought a compact disc, album on CD, because I believe there was an allegation of price fixing in the CD market, the music compact disc market. And they settled it as a class, and they said anybody who bought compact discs between this period and this period can get some money again. The pool gets divided up. And so I submitted a claim, and I remember getting a thing in the mail, and it looked like junk mail, and you open it up, and it's a postcard. And on the inside of the postcard was printed out a check for $1.18. So you understand, of course. I've spoken to a lot of people who say, Steve, I got 2 checks. I got one check, and a little while later I got a smaller check. And what happens is they are trying to estimate how many people have responded and will respond. They divide up the pool and they send out those checks. If they overestimated, though, and not as many people responded as they thought were going to respond, they might then say, okay, we've got a little bit left over. Again, it's got to get divided up among these people. So there you go, your second check. So crazy story, though. The Equifax data breach settlement checks bouncing, but it only affected a little bit under 5,000 people, so no big deal. From CNBC, Jeffrey sent it. Thanks a lot. Sarah O'Brien wrote it. Some Equifax settlement checks bounced due to a clerical error at a failed bank. Questions, your comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. In life, it's not where you go, it's who you travel with.